Hello there, everyone, and welcome to our latest episode of the Market Misbehavior podcast. I'm your host, Dave Keller, and our goal with this podcast is to sit down with top market practitioners, investors, traders, money managers, educators, authors, and learn what they've learned, try to benefit from their years of experience in the markets, and get a sense of what sort of opportunities they may see given rapidly evolving market conditions. Today I'm excited to share a conversation I had recently with Mike Larson. Mike's the editor-in-chief at the MoneyShow. I've met Mike through my experiences speaking at money shows in a number of times over the years, but really in the last year or two I've done a lot more events with the MoneyShow crew. It's a fantastic group, really focusing on educating individual investors, and really impressed by how they've evolved their events to be more interactive, really giving you an opportunity as an attendee to engage with speakers. And I've enjoyed having a lot of conversations with many of you. I've actually met a number of viewers of my work, the podcast here, as well as my market recap show called Chart This. I've met a number of you at the money shows, and I'll look forward to future discussions as well. I talked with Mike about his experience as editor-in-chief. He's been able to moderate a lot of really good discussions with top market strategists through the course of his couple of years in his role with the Money Show. We talked about the changing market environment. New year, a lot of new changes with the new presidential administration, interest rate environment. Coming off of an incredibly bullish year, but now the market's starting to show signs of uncertainty. And I thought Mike had some really interesting thoughts about how to really track that change of character, where he is seeing rotations in his own work. We talked about the strength in 2024 and what that means for 2025. Should investors be concerned about words like overvalued and overextended? And I thought his comments about how to deal with a year after a year like we experienced in 2024 was really well put. I asked him about alternative assets because at the Money Show you'll hear a lot about non-equity asset classes like real estate and precious metals like gold and silver and platinum. And I thought his comments on why alternative investments can make sense and how to really be thoughtful about how you integrate them into your portfolio, I thought was really well done. We really focused on the 2025 Top Picks report, which Money Show just put out, highlighting some top ideas from some of the many Money Show speakers and contributors. And he also shared some of the top performers from last year's report, which I thought were really interesting to highlight. Overall, really good conversation, really highlighting some of the strengths of the Money Show, an event that I've been involved with. But I thought Mike combined some of those insights and his experiences with the Money Show with some really thoughtful market insights, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. So here is my recent discussion with Mike Larson of the Money Show. So pleasure to sit down here today with Mike Larson, the editor-in-chief of the Money Show. Mike, it's good to see you again. I've seen you a number of times at the Money Show events here in recent years, but great to sit down with you virtually as we kick off the new year. How are things your way, okay?
Yeah, glad to do it, David. Great to see you as well. We're only a few days into this new year, and it's already a pretty interesting one, when you look at what's going on in the markets. But it's always refreshing to have some new ideas, new perspective. You change the calendar, and a lot of things change in terms of, market outlooks and charts and so on. So really looking forward to a great year, really looking forward to see what happens. I mean, we've got this new political environment, new economic environment, interest rate environment, you name it. So a lot going on.
I feel like if you love change, you're going to love 2025. I feel like so many things are sort of evolving here as we observe the markets. I want to talk about the market conditions. I'd love to talk about some ideas. I know you guys just released the 2025 Top Picks report. I'm interested to see what kind of ideas surface there. But first, for those that aren't familiar with you, I've met you through the Money Show and I've watched what you've done, moderating some really cool discussions at recent events. Tell us a little bit about your role as editor-in-chief at the Money Show. What does that mean? What's your background? How did you get here?
Yeah, sure. Appreciate the question. Originally, actually, I kind of came up from the journalism world and learned the financial side of things, which in this business, I've seen it's sort of a 50-50 split. People who used to be brokers, for example, and talk about the markets now in the media side, and people who came up from the media side and learned how the financial world works. I actually graduated from college, journalism and English double major, but worked at Bloomberg in college, and then went on to work for bankrate.com and kind of writing and talking about the personal finance arena. And then I joined a firm called Weiss Research, Weiss Ratings, all the way back in 2001. And that's where I would write about different market markets, market conditions. We had trading services. We had newsletters. I actually got to speak at a lot of Money Show conferences all the way back in 2005 was kind of the first time where I would go to Money Show events and explain, what Weiss had to say about the markets, where we saw opportunity, where we saw risks, best stocks, worst stocks, whatever. And that's kind of how I first came across what Money Show did. And attended their events for many years, spoke on behalf of Weiss there for years after that. And then a couple of years ago, just over 2.5 years ago, there was an opportunity to kind of look at maybe jumping the fence and being on this side of it and hosting these events, emceeing the events, moderating panels, getting to have conversations both online and in person as editor in chief and MC. And frankly, it's been great. I always enjoyed, amongst all the things I did when I was at Weiss, I really enjoyed meeting the subscribers in person, getting to, pick their brains, hear what they were asking about versus just kind of sitting behind a keyboard and banging away at what you think is important. So it was a natural fit to come on this side and, help facilitate those events and meet people like you. And we have, 1,000+ experts that we're fortunate enough share their time, share their expertise with our conference attendees online and in person. And it's, it's a really interesting, really great way to meet, talk with, interact with some of the smartest experts out there and just everyday investors and traders.
No, it's a great mix of really talented investors and strategists from my experience, and really fun to talk to people that you just run into casually at some of the events that you guys hold, the cocktail hours and everything, networking events, just to sort of see what people are seeing and hearing, on the ground managing their own portfolio. So I think you've been a great addition to the team, Mike. It's been great to get to know you here and involved with the Money Show. I'd love to ask you a little bit about the events coming up later this year, but first, talk to us about the market conditions. We were talking before we got started. I feel like this is a time of change or change of character, right? We had an incredibly bullish 2024, one of the best in recent history. But now all of a sudden, a lot of question marks coming up. New president, new administration, certainly potential policy changes, new interest rate environment, what the Fed is going to do. With that as a backdrop, what is your sort of impression of the market conditions here early January as you look forward in the coming months? What stands out to you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've sort of shorthanded my worldview for about 2 years now as be bold. The thesis came around from, there's times you want to be boring in the markets where you want to play defense. The utilities and things like that are outperforming and the growthier sectors are underperforming. And that was kind of what we had, at the tail end or in 2022 when not much was working at all. It was the boring stuff that was working. It wasn't working very well. Both stocks and bonds performed poorly on the year. Gold just kind of flatlined. But as we rolled into 23 and really the fourth quarter of 22, you saw a change in character of the markets. You saw bold type investments, sectors, asset classes, and so on start to take the lead. And we've had some hiccups now and then, in the last 2 years, but that's generally been the case. Being bold, being more aggressive, playing offense versus defense in your portfolio has worked. And we obviously just had the best back-to-back 2 years for the S&P since 97, 98. As an optimist, you can say, well, that's great. That's wonderful that the markets were that strong. As a pessimist, you can say, well, geez, what happened not too long after 97, 98? We had the dot-com bust. I'm still in that bold camp. I think when you look at the sum total of the things going on out there, whether it's from an economic standpoint, whether it's from a sort of a political geopolitics standpoint, whether it's from even a market positioning standpoint, I'm still seeing enough out there that I'm fairly sanguine on the environment. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy by coming out on this and saying, look, I don't expect a 20% plus year for the S&P. That would be shocking if I think we got that kind of gain. And I do think some of our experts have said it, and I tend to agree that we're going to see more volatility. We've obviously seen it so far, right? I mean, we priced in a lot of sort of, okay, with a Trump administration, you're going to have less regulation, you're going to have a growth tilted policy, drill baby drill, whatever, all of those things. And we ran in Q3 of last year and a little bit after the election on those catalysts. But at the same time, now you've got issues like, okay, what does that mean for debts and deficits? What does that mean for interest rates? If you look at just in the last week, I mean, we've seen some turmoil in the bond market, both here in the US and overseas. The UK bond market's been getting hammered. So I think you're starting to see people ask the question, investors ask the question, can we really have all of this stuff being thrown at the markets, the economy, without it maybe either overheating things or maybe reigniting inflation? So, and of course, the corollary to that is, well, then if you have all those things going on the fiscal side or the policy side, what does it mean for monetary policy? it probably means the Fed can't cut as much. Interest rate futures markets have dialed back quite a bit their expectations for Fed cuts in 25. So you roll it all together. I think that's why we're seeing some of the volatility here. I wouldn't be surprised if it lasts for a while. I don't think it's one of those years where you're just going to be off to the races and never look back. But ultimately, I'm still fairly confident in the earnings environment. I still think the growth outlook is going to be pretty solid. I think the market can handle higher interest rates if it's not one of those situations where rates rise too far, too fast. That used to always kind of be my rule. Higher interest rates are okay. It's when they really start running that stocks have a problem.
It's a lot of really good points in there, Mike, to be honest with you. I think you hit on all the different themes the fact that we have to sort of deal with all of these things at once tells you the challenge I think investors are facing here in 2025. Hopefully some time at the money shows will help alleviate their fears a little bit. Looking at the markets here, I think one of the challenges a lot of investors are struggling with is the fact that the market was just so strong in 2024. And I think there's a natural sort of fear that the good times can't last forever. The music stops, and all of a sudden you're left with a lot of, a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. How much does the strength in 2024 play into your expectations going forward? Are words like overvalued or overextended come into your thinking, or is it more of a trend following exercise? Follow the strength until it's no longer there.
I'm not incredibly concerned about overall the market being overvalued. You can find pockets of anything. And let's be honest, whether it's AI stocks, whether it's some of these, sort of niche-y type plays, that's where you have these big run-ups, these big corrections, and people can get sort of irrationally or irrationally exuberant if they're playing along. But all in all, I always kind of come back to the point that we had the bust. We had a lot of this cycle's junk, the SPACs, the money-losing tech companies, IPOs just being thrown at the market every day. All that kind of happened in 2021 and part of 22, and we started unwinding that back then. Again, 22 was a terrible year for stocks and bonds, frankly. A lot of those SPACs and money-losing IPOs, those companies, lost 50-60% of their value. It was almost sort of dot-com-esque in my book back then. So we cleared a lot of the garbage out of the markets, and I think that's part of the reason we were able to run so strongly the last 2 years. If I had to maybe think of an analog in my career to what's happening now, I kind of look at when we came out of the dot-com bust. We had, a great couple of years there, but then I want to say it was probably 04 where we spent most of the year chopping around just kind of sideways as the market dealt with rising interest rates. And it just, was one of these kind of deals for a number of months before at the end of the year, we were finally able to break out of that range. I don't know if past is going to be exactly prologue, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. A couple strong years, a potentially lengthy, more volatile digestion period, but ultimately we've resolved to the upside.
It's great points there, Mike, to be sure. And I always hesitate when people talk about words like overvalued or overextended. You can make that claim in any bull market phase that things are getting overvalued, right? Because valuations just get higher and higher as things go up. It's usually not something to be too afraid of because that's how, generally speaking, the markets have been trending higher. I'd love to ask you about alternative assets because I think at the Money Show, you guys have done a really good job of kind of surfacing, non-equity assets, right? And outside of bonds as well, commodities, gold, precious metals, real estate, and other sort of things. Why do you think that sort of, diversification into non-equity asset classes sort of best serves investors in this kind of environment?
Yeah, well, I think, the traditional 60-40 portfolio split, obviously that worked for a number of years. And you look at a year like 2022 and it just didn't. It kind of fell on its face because some of the same things that were hurting stocks were also hurting bonds, and not much of anything traditional tended to work. Even before that, though, and certainly after that, we've seen more thirst from investors, both institutional and individual, for other kind of non-correlated assets, alternatives that may give you less volatility, more diversification, greater income potential and profit potential too, and that are not necessarily, go through all the volatility that you see in day-to-day equities. And so that's been one of the things people come to us. I've seen over my years at Money Show from the attendee side, and certainly now that I'm working for the company, you get a feel for what people are interested in because of what they're asking. What do they ask you about on site? What do they ask you about via email? What are they calling in about? What do they want to know about? And certainly that alternative space has generated a lot more interest. And if you look at money flows, institutional flows, a lot more, the big money flows are going into that space. And of course, as part of that, What does Wall Street do? They find a way to sort of serve that demand. So you're seeing all kinds of new ETFs or new fund structures that allow, average investors or more investors to participate in markets that otherwise were sort of the playgrounds of the hedge funds and, and big institutional money. So it's an interesting trend. It has benefits and drawbacks like anything, right? So we're always trying to educate people. We want to bring speakers who not only, aren't just promoting something in that space, but give you education, explain, so you can go in eyes wide open what you're potentially getting as a benefit, but also some of the risks you need to be aware of because it's a new arena for many people.
No, it's true. And to your point, I think these are areas of the market, just in my experience, around 24 years in the industry, when I just got started to where we are now, the number of opportunities you have as an individual investor, the number of levers you can pull, the markets you have access to through fairly low cost, vehicles is pretty staggering. So I love the fact that you guys focus on educating and trying to inform people about how to sort of make those informed decisions about which areas of the market to focus on. So kudos for that. So, Mike, I'd love to ask you about the 2025 Top Picks report. I know you guys just came out with that here at the beginning of the year. It's a really interesting sort of aggregation of a number of different ideas from a number of different sources. Talk to us about this Top Picks report. What sort of ideas in there? What themes stand out to you as you review the material?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, the Top Picks project, this report project, it's been something that MoneyShow we've been doing for decades. I mean, I've been in charge the last couple of years, but my predecessors ran it very well before that. And the idea is go out towards the end of each year and tally what newsletter editors, what analysts, what other experts are saying. Hey, look, you can pick maybe one slightly more aggressive and one slightly more conservative pick, and you could only buy and hold it for the next 12 months. What would you recommend? So it's that's the genesis of it. That's the idea behind it. We always say, look, it's not an actively managed portfolio. It's not like a contest and frankly, during the year, somebody may like something in January that they don't necessarily like in July, depending on what happens in the market. The idea is just give me, if you could only give two picks, what are your best ideas? So we have, we produce it every year. We just dropped the report for 25. It's kind of interesting. We have 78 contributions from 44 different contributors in there, and they're kind of a range. I mean, anybody knows what Tesla is or what Amazon is or what Google is and so on. So you tend to have picks in the report that are a little more off the beaten path. And that can serve you great in a year where it's an extremely broad market, where people are looking for niche-y type ideas. And it can be a little bit, tougher for you if you look at performance when it's a year that's dominated by a few names. That being said, I think when you look at some of the themes that people are focusing in on, that the experts are naming in here, it's things like the GLP drugs, the anti-obesity drugs, and the companies that may benefit from that, that are either directly involved or kind of tangentially involved. So that's one thing that I noticed. When it comes to things like precious metals and commodities, there's a couple names, a handful of names that are focused on that theme, not just sort of the bull market in gold that we had. Obviously, gold was very strong in 24, but also some plays in silver and some of these rare earth type names that are a little bit nichier, again, even in that space. So those are a few types of things that people will focus in on, and I don't necessarily limit it to equities. I always say, look, if you have something else that you're looking at, last year there were a couple of crypto ETFs, and I want to be, sort of fair. It's your best idea, sir or ma'am. I'm not going to tell you can't do that. And ironically enough, one of the top performing picks for 24 was in fact a Bitcoin ETF. So it just kind of goes to show you it's out of the way thinking. It's nichier in some cases. It's not just the stocks that everybody owns. But I think that's sort of the idea. It's let's give you some ideas, a starting point. You're not going to go out and buy 100 shares of everything here, but you're going to say, okay, I've got this list now. I'm interested in maybe X, Y, and Z. Now I know more about it, and maybe it's right for my portfolio.
On behalf of all the entire community of Money Show speakers and contributors, thank you for not having too heavy of a hand as we share ideas and share insights. That makes it a great relationship, I would say, both ways, Mike, for sure. I have to ask, you mentioned, one of the things that performed well. When you look back at the 2024 Top Picks report, what kind of ideas worked very well? I mean, I would assume it's sort of those crypto kind of growthy AI types of ideas, but what ended up working the best?
Well, it's interesting. The top performer was actually a company called Viking Therapeutics, which is a VKTX, VKTX. And they're one of these sort of GLP juniors. It's a biotech company that's trying to develop its own anti-obesity drug. It had some favorable results on early stage trials. And so that was a big name from one of our specialists in biotech. Again, a person who's his biotechnology or medical technology stock ladder, that's what he knows, that's what he does. And that actually ended up being the biggest performer. We had Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM, that was another big performing name from a different provider that, was kind of looking at the valuation, looking at the chip sector and saying, this is going to probably do pretty well. That ended up kind of fighting in second and third place right till the very end with GBTC, which is the Bitcoin ETF that I mentioned. Obviously, we all know what happened there. The rollout of Bitcoin ETFs to the masses certainly attracted a lot of flows. But even going down the list, there's a few, there's another chip name. Looking off the screen, just going down the top 10, APO, which is the financial Apollo, financial company. There's a couple of smaller ones, and there, maybe one big name, Oracle's in there as well. So you do have kind of a mix of the nichier, more unique stuff, as well as a few of the big names like Oracle, and obviously the trend of Bitcoin ETFs. So, I think chips was kind of a theme. Crypto was kind of a theme, and we did have some pretty good performance a little bit further down from metals plays, things like Agnico Eagle and so on.
Great. It's awesome. And I'd encourage people to check out the topics report. We're going to include a link in the description so people can get to that. And it should be a lot of fun. And again, I know in my previous life as an institutional money manager in that environment, getting ideas from people, whether or not you just blindly follow them, which I would never suggest people do, but it just gives you things to think about, gives you themes to dig into. And having people with particular domain expertise in areas like biotech or metals or oil can be so valuable because they have a deeper knowledge than you're probably ever going to have. So I'm sure some of those ideas will come out of the report for sure.
Yeah,
let us look forward to the events coming up in 2025. It's been a pleasure to participate in some of the events in 2024. Getting to know you and meeting a lot of the attendees and other speakers as well. Look forward through 2025. I know we have a Las Vegas event coming up in February. Talk us through what's coming up for the Money Show this year.
Yeah, sure. February event, the February 17th to 19th. We have two different kinds of events. One is sort of the broad Money Show Traders Expo events, which is the one in Las Vegas in February, as well as the one in October in Orlando, Florida. And those are the big shows. They have a big exhibit hall. They're aimed at kind of the general investor, retail trader audience. A lot of technology providers, a lot of companies that are offering investments, public companies and private investment sponsors, and so on. And so you can get a little bit of everything. I kind of refer to it as Vegas is known for its buffets, right? Well, this is sort of your financial, your portfolio buffet, if you will. That you'll have your choice to hear presenters on everything from energy stocks to crypto to the broad averages to alternatives. You're going to get to pick and choose. You look at the brochure, the website, and figure out, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, and you kind of program around that. And it's a ton of stuff packed into 3 days. We're doing some other fun things there. We're going to have a money machine. We're doing a podcaster's corner, as you know, where we're going to have a couple of the podcasters sit down and do their interviews on site. So it's a unique feature people seem to appreciate. And really, between that, the book signings, the meet and greets, the idea is we don't want to just put somebody on stage. They're going to talk for 20 minutes and then you're never going to see them again during the 3 days on site. Our experts are very generous with their time. They're happy to answer your questions. They'll talk with you over cocktail hours and so on. Autograph a book if you want. Everything. To really, again, have more than just an experience where somebody's talking at you. You're going to get to hear much more in detail than you would just in a TV snippet. You're also going to get to interact with these people and, frankly, your fellow investors. Again, I go back to my time when I was on the other side of the fence and I was speaking at these events. I loved the conversations with just the investors who would come with amazingly detailed, pointed, and questions that might put you on the spot, but that's what we're there for, right? We want to help investors and traders make money, and this is one of the best ways to do it, in my opinion.
No, I'm super excited for the Podcasters Corner. I know at the Orlando event, Mike, I sat down with Peter Schiff and Adrian Day. Some really fun conversations. So I'll look forward to more of those kind of conversations here coming up at the Money Show next month. And also, would say to your credit, thanks so much for you and the team making it a much more interactive experience. I know, years and years ago when I attended a Money Show, it was, a little more lecture style. And now I feel like there's a lot of opportunities to sort of get to know each other. I've had some really thoughtful and targeted questions from some of the attendees, uncomfortably so at times. And there's some really, really thoughtful, knowledgeable questions. And I think the opportunity for an attendee to, really interact with some of the speakers in the way that I've seen you're providing is just fantastic. So thanks so much for that. Mike, this has been a pleasure. I really, really enjoy sitting down with you here virtually. I look forward to seeing you at the event in Las Vegas. And I appreciate you coming on the show today. Where can we point people to learn more about the Money Show, the Top Picks Report, where can we aim people?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if it starts with the report, you can go to toppicks2025.moneyshow.com. So toppicks2025.moneyshow.com. That's where the report is. If you just go to the Money Show, main Money Show website, there's a little tab at the corner, gives you all the live events. You can see what's going on in Vegas by clicking on that one. Later in the year, we'll be in Dallas and in 5 or 6 other cities as the year goes on. So click that tab, look at the conference, kind of decide who you want to see. And one last thing I will just point out, we do have a range of passes. You can sample some of the exhibit hall stuff with a free pass, or if you want kind of the whole shebang, we've got passes that are paid that give you access to everything. So come on by and ask me some of those pointed questions. I'm ready for them.
The invitation is out. The gauntlet is thrown. Hit Mike with whatever you want. And I know the VIP level of membership really gives you access to some of the networking events that are really, really beneficial. So certainly encourage people to check those out. Mike, great to see you again, and we'll see you next month in Vegas.
Awesome. We'll see you then, David.
I really appreciated sitting down with Mike. I've been able to get to know him over the last couple of years through my work with the Money Show, but really fun to sort of reverse the interaction, because I've actually been on Mike's podcast a number of times. And it was really good to interview him a little bit. And I thought his comments about alternative assets and just the opportunities that are available for individual investors, so true. And I think more than ever, you really need to educate yourself on the tools and techniques to understand these different asset classes. It's not just a plain vanilla equity world anymore. I think as an individual investor, you have the ability to access all sorts of different markets around the global financial industry, and really being thoughtful and deliberate about how you incorporate some of those assets into your portfolio is really important. As we mentioned in our discussion, I'll be speaking at the Las Vegas Money Show, and you can go to marketmisbehavior.com/moneyshow for more information on that event and to sign up. I will be doing an event, a presentation, particularly called the 4 cardinal sins, or the 4 deadly sins of investors, I think I called it, really talking about buying too early, buying too late, selling too early, selling too late. We'll talk about how each of those things can impact your performance. We'll talk about some of the specific technical analysis tools that I think can help you address some of those challenges. If there's 1 or 2 of those that you find tends to happen a little more often than in your process. So I hope you can go there to marketmisbehavior.com/moneyshow, sign up for that event. And if you do so, please make a point of coming and saying hello. It's been so great to meet some of you guys at the Money Shows and other events through the course of the year. This will be the first, actually the second event I'll be doing here in 2025, and I'll look forward to meeting some of you there. As a reminder, as always, if this sort of thinking about investor analysis, about technical analysis and behavioral finance, if you find that you're struggling to get a read on the markets and you need some help, you need a mentor to help point you in the right direction and give yourself some better tools and techniques to have a more mindful investment process and improve your market awareness, our Market Misbehavior Premium memberships could be the perfect opportunity. What a great gift to yourself and for the new year to upgrade your market awareness. You can go to marketmisbehavior.com/premium for more information on our premium memberships. There's 3 main parts to that offering. Number 1, our virtual courses. We'll teach you all about technical analysis, all about behavioral finance, which is what happens between your ears. We'll talk about a consistent application of technical analysis using routines that we will walk you through our virtual courses. Second piece of that are some premium members-only reports, like my weekly flight plan that I put out every weekend. That is my main report where I look back at the week that just happened, look forward at the week to come, talk about key signals, patterns, and levels we'll be looking for. Some of my current subscribers have told me it's just really helps them make sense of what happened and give themselves a good, actionable set of things to think about through the course of the week to come. Also, our monthly chart review, where we apply our proprietary market trend model to a bunch of different asset classes, really think about trends and how they're evolving month to month. Finally, we have a members-only community, which you then have access to, opportunity to ask questions at any time for myself, and me and my team will circle back with you with ideas and resources about based on what you asked about. You'll also find it's a pretty active community, and some of my other members may weigh in as well with some of their own experiences, but it's a way to navigate these markets together. And if I can help you along in your investing journey, I hope you'll consider it. Go to marketmisbehavior.com/premium for more information on those premium memberships. Don't forget to use the code PODCAST for 30% off your first 12 months on any plan. That's it for today for Market Misbehavior. I am Dave Keller. Thanks so much for joining me here on today's episode. And remember, it's always a good time to own good charts. Have a great one.